My name is Mike Christ. I live here in Kenya with my family, and I help direct the Nairobi Institute of Reformed Theology, a seminary level training program based out of Emmanuel Baptist Church. Two reasons. One has to do with the great need for gospel clarity to push against the prosperity gospel, other heretical forms of Christianity, Islam, given the threat to the church and to the clarity of the gospel in the surrounding area. So that's one reason. The other reason is the strength of the church here in Nairobi. Even though in the midst of those threats, there is a thriving church that is asking to be equipped with the resources that have been deposited throughout church history that are a normal part of theological education for other parts of the world. Those theological educational resources are scarce here, and the pastors and aspiring pastors and church leaders are wanting that level of education that is available in other parts of the world to also be available here, so that they can be well equipped to push against the prosperity gospel, encroaching Islam, and other things that would threaten the clarity of the gospel here. Yeah, that's a good question. And those are the things I would have misunderstood as well before I actually came here. I think that when people come over here, when my friends and sporting churches and all come over here, they are surprised at the numbers. Like, there are a lot of people who are gathered to worship, passionately worshiping on a Sunday morning. There are a number of people who are being baptized. God is working here. So it's an encouraging thing just to see the work of God that He's doing here in Nairobi. They're also surprised at the level of theological education. Our students are learning Greek, they're learning Hebrew, they're learning those languages really well. They're diving into deep texts in church history. Thomas Aquinas, Anselm, Augustine, Bavinck, texts that are the best of the Christian tradition that the church has inherited. And they're engaging with those texts deeply. So people who come over are surprised to see that the level here is certainly not any less than the top seminaries in the U.S. And we're pushing people to grow very deeply. So this year we're learning. The students are learning Greek. They alternate every year. One year it's Hebrew first, and then the next year it's Greek. And so students are learning that, and they're learning that well. I'm also teaching medieval church history this year, and we're just reading through texts throughout the medieval period having to do with the doctrine of the Trinity. So today I'm teaching, lecturing on Thomas Aquinas' book, The Compendium, where he talks about the oneness of God in preparation for talking about the threeness of God. And I'm also teaching a class on, I'm lecturing on the role of the gospel and culture, and how we should think about the interplay between those when it comes to the issue of contextualization. So that's another thing that I'm thinking about this semester, and I'm lecturing on that today. We rely upon the universal church. So, we are based out of a local church here in Nairobi, but the local church is not all by itself. It's connected through all sorts of ways through the church throughout the world, throughout all ages too, as we're inheriting a tradition that has been passed on to us, that we're trying to educate people in. So we want to rely upon that universal church structure in terms of what we are in relationship to the whole. And that means also that we would not be able to do what we're doing without the church throughout the world, particularly in the West, and particularly in the U.S., coming alongside of us to help us with teaching. So we have people who come over and they volunteer their time to come over and teach for a week or two. And then also churches and individuals that give financially so that they're able to so the students have access to the high level of education that we're offering. So we actually don't charge tuition for our classes, and that's so that this level of education can be accessible to anybody. The students only pay for their books, which then they get to keep and use throughout the rest of their ministry. But the education is actually, we're not charging for that. And so we need the rest of the church to help us provide the expenses in order to continue making this education available to everybody.